This episode is sponsored by Platinum Black. If you haven't checked them out at platinumblack.com, here's what you need to know. They're a growth consulting and marketing firm that helps B2B companies accelerate growth through tightly integrated go-to-market strategy, marketing, and creative services. But if you go back to episode 39 of Let's Bring It In, you'll hear Aaron Eby, Platinum Black's executive creative director. And if you watch that conversation, you'll get a real sense of the thinking and the craft and the caring of the people behind that work. So check them out at platinumblack.com. And now here's the show. This is Let's Bring It In, the podcast about creative leaders doing great work in-house. I'm Greg Christensen. And my guest today is Luis Marques, a creative director whose path has taken him from his hometown in Madeira, Google it, you're going to want to Hyper Island in Sweden, to agencies like Crispin, Leo Burnett, BBDO, and now to in-house creative leadership at brands like Realtor.com and Starbucks. Along the way, he's built a really thoughtful perspective on creativity, performance, collaboration, and what it means to make work that people actually care about. Luis talks about the difference between chasing ideas that win awards and building ideas that move the business. He shares a great story about a simple Realtor.com banner that dramatically dropped the cost per install. And he talks about creating the creative gym, which is something that helps teams think more conceptually and collaborate more effectively across disciplines. We also get into his work at Starbucks, the tension and opportunity between agency and in-house teams, and why some of the best feedback you'll ever get can feel less like criticism and more like a creative brief. I really enjoyed this conversation with Luis. Think you're going to as well. Let's bring it in. Luis Marques, welcome to Let's Bring It In. I'm glad we're able to schedule you. You're coming off a pretty incredibly busy stretch, right?
Yeah, very busy. I'm glad to be here, Greg. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, this is great. So I know that you recently spent several months as a creative director at Starbucks. I know that you were behind that terrific coffee run ad. I definitely want to ask you about that. But before we jump in, let's just jump back a bit and trace your career. I'd love to know what brought you to where you are today, because you've got a pretty interesting history.
Yeah, well, thanks. I grew up in Madeira, an island in the middle of the Atlantic, known for Madeira wine and Cristiano Ronaldo. That's where everything started for me. I started in design, but like from my path, the recent path, there's three key moments that really stand out to me and what it's making me who I am today. One of them is Hyper Island. It literally broke my brain in the best way. I walk in thinking, like creativity was about craft, was about making these beautiful things. And they basically said, nope, creativity is about solving problems with people who think nothing, like literally nothing like you. There's like people from all over the world, so many different personalities. So that was kind of like the foundation.
Was that Hyper Island? Sorry to interrupt. Was that Hyper Island? Was that one that you went to Sweden to, or was that held somewhere else? Okay.
Yes, that was a school in Sweden back in the day. I think like was Rob Schwartz from TVWA back then. I think he coined like one of the best digital schools in the world, and then someone said it was like the Harvard digital school of the world. Anyway, there was a lot of hype back then, so I got in. Because I wanted to be, I was working in a newspaper back home. So I was like an art director, like aspiring to be an art director in a newspaper, which is like kind of like the creative director. And then, it was 2012. No, sorry, it was 2010. And then the newspapers, no one was reading newspapers. So people say, the paper is dead. And I was like, no, it's not. And then I started walking around. I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't see anyone reading the newspaper outside. It's actually my actually died. So I decided to quit my job. I was in this job for about 5 years already in my career. So I quit my job and I went to this school, Hyper Island. They had like an interactive art director program. And that was kind of like my way in because I wanted to go back to advertising, but my book, my portfolio in editorial only gave me like deck design. And that's not what I wanted to do. So I went to Hyper Island thinking, I'm going to be like, thinking about these ideas, I'm going to learn all these things. And all I learned was life lessons that it's literally changed who I am today. Like as a creative leader, I think it really shaped me who I am. So yeah, it changed how I see myself, honestly.
So you did Hyper Island, and then at what point, when did you come to the States after that?
Yes. So when I was at Hyper Island, like back then, it was like agency of the decade. There was like so much momentum. They had offices all over the world, and one of them was in Sweden. So we had this like workshop, was like a 72-hour for Solve for Peace. It was like really, student work, amazing. And they came to school and they, like they introduced the way that Crispin was coming up with those ideas through the PR, through the press releases. And that clicked to me. It was like, wait a minute, you're telling me you're coming up with these ideas for my friends back at the newspaper to write about? Dude, this is a no-brainer. I want to work for these guys. So I applied for an internship, and I got the internship in Boulder. I was the lucky one in school to get that
Wow.
internship. So that was really, really cool. So yeah, Crispin was another part of my career that shaped who I am. It was a complete different energy compared to obviously to Hyper Island. That place ran on ambition. You were surrounded by people who believe a creative idea could shift culture. Not just sell the product, but literally shift culture, and that's what they were doing back then. And this is
Yeah.
like 2012, right? So it really raised the bar for what creativity could do in the world, and I start to learn that. um, but yeah, but I think the biggest shift moving on after like big jump from Crispin, I think the big shift came when I moved in house to Realtor.com. I was at BBDO before we moved up to Seattle, so I was working remote, and the Realtor.com was remote. Was like a previous boss that I had, Alia Burnett Nuno. So he invited me. It was like, hey, no brainer. I wanted to try in house. I wanted to see how it was. I had so many friends tell me all the good things about it and all the bad things about it, and I was like, I got to try this thing. So I joined, and suddenly, things start to work, and new stuff that I start to learn. uh, but the big shift, that's when I came join with us, because suddenly nobody cared how clever the idea was, right? So I'm coming from agency. All you need to
Yeah.
care is about ideas, how clever they are, how unique they are, and then you're at Realtor.com with that mindset, and then no one cared about that. It was so weird. It's like, wait a minute, like why? Like, and I had so many questions. And I think the only question that I learned on the other side was, uh, did this idea move the business? Is this idea going to move the business? Is this idea going to perform? So that was like very humbling at first, to be honest. But it
Yeah.
became the most creatively freeing thing that ever happened to me. To be honest, it was those three chapters together literally gave me everything that I live with today. There was like a lot
How
of
how
self awareness.
was how was that creatively freeing? Because I think a lot of people with, just hearing about this would say, okay, Hyper Island, great. Crispin, that makes all the sense in the world. BBDO and some other, good traditional agencies, that makes sense. But then to go in-house to realtor.com, I think might, cause the needle to scratch the record for some people. So talk about how that was creatively freeing.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think there was a mind shift that happened, a mindset shift that happened, and I think that's what I mean by freely, is because when like when you go, one of the things we learn at Hyper Island too is always look for something that is uncomfortable. So when you find something that is you're like hitching, you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna solve this. Like there's a new problem for you to solve. So it was free.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by that. When I got there, I was like, oh my god, like all the things I thought I knew how to do, now I need to relearn. This is a new beast. This is a new thing that I don't know how I'm going to solve it. And so it was freely creatively freely, because I was like, okay, so I need to figure this out. This is a new problem I need to go get in my hands on. And so that's what I mean. It was exciting, but it was a big mindset shift, to be honest, because like in the agency life, again, like you grow up chasing the perfect idea, you chase the one that wins the award, the one that goes in your portfolio, the one that other creators get jealous of, right? So that's
Yeah.
where the real value is, because it sharpens your craft, like you're constantly raising the bar. But then when you go to Realtor.com, you understand that expression without impact is just decoration, right? Like if you come up
Yeah.
with a beautiful idea that is just a beautiful idea, it's just a beautiful idea, right? People will see, yeah, it's a beautiful idea, but without the impact, it doesn't work. So, which is really interesting. And I think that's what I learned at Realtor.com and now at Starbucks is that impact is really important. But at the same time, the beautiful thing of both combined is impact without expression is also a spreadsheet. It's just numbers, right? So it
Yeah.
needs to be a
Yeah.
combination of both. One cannot live without each other. Um, so it's been very humbling, and it's been exciting to learn all these new things I didn't know.
Yeah. I wonder if you would retell a story you told me when we spoke earlier. You talked about how, I mean, you've been chasing awards, you've been at really, really good shops doing award-winning work, and then you told me you had kind of an experience where you did a simple call to action banner for
Hmm.
realtor.com, and like the cost per install or whatever it was, it either went it skyrocketed, and you were like, I might not put this in my portfolio, but this worked really well. I mean, would you tell that story? Because I thought that was fascinating.
Totally, yeah, yeah. This is one of my favorite stories because it's so small. Like we were running these banners for Realtor.com, just standard stuff. Like image of the app, clean layout, and then a button like a CTA button that read something like "Download the app now," right? So technically, that's accurate. That's exactly what we want people to do. But if you think about the user side, and this is where you bring, and this is the beauty of exposed to advertising agencies, being a creative in the agencies. You train your brain to think about the insight, you think about the human truth, you think about the tension. So what I did there was kind of like the same, and that's what I started to do. It was like, okay, so how do I bridge these gaps? Like there's Realtor.com like they want the business inside. There was all this stuff. So I start bringing the foundations that you do at advertising agencies, and I apply to these banner ads. So basically, I look at that banner ad as an empty canvas, right? It could have been an idea for a film, could be an idea for activation. In this case, was an idea for a banner. So we start like thinking about what was the human inside, and then start thinking about who is on the other side of the transaction, right? Like who is going to be home and wanted to click on this thing. So, and we knew that nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, you know what, I need another app on my phone. So, right, it's really really hard to get people to download these apps. So that's not how people work. We know that they were browsing the internet, thinking about homes. We know they are curious, and we also know that they are looking around, right? So I got the permission to rethink the whole thing with the intention of let's see if we can boost downloads. And again, like back then, the business problem was interest rates are going up. People cannot afford homes anymore. The people who owns the homes, they don't want to sell it to get a higher interest mortgage rate. So we
Mhm.
had a really big problem. It was like, well, our app downloads are down. We need to get downloads in. So because the problem was so big, they were open to any ideas. So that was the perfect brief, right? Like kind of like the dream
Yeah.
brief, right? So we start thinking about what could make people click these things. So again, we knew what people were looking for. We knew what people were doing. We just needed to find like a real human insight and attention. And that's where we landed on this idea that people are noisy. We're all noisy, right? Like think about it.
Yeah.
Have you ever visit someone's house and wonder how much they pay for it? Because I do.
Yeah.
Like every time I go
Yeah.
to someone's house, like, oh my God, this house is awesome. How much did they pay for this? So that was kind of like the idea of this banner. So we rewrote the banner and we made the bottom part of the headline to make like a little funny. And it was something like click here to see how much your neighbor's house is worth. The
Mm.
design didn't change, Greg. Like it was just
Yeah.
one line of copy. We moved the button. We had the same clean design, the same phone app product shot, And then we put it out in the world and like, let's put it out in the world. Let's wait and see. And the results came back and it got the entire company excited from like from directors to C levels. Everyone was talking about this thing because the cost per install dropped from $29 to $5. That's like a 83% decrease. That's one banner, 83%, sorry, 83% decrease in the cost per installation. So that was amazing. It was just a
Yeah.
simple banner based on a human insight, find attention, and then let's see what happens. Like people start downloading our app. So that was really, really cool. And it became the benchmark, like one of the things that is also amazing about that I learned, that I got excited about learning about at Realtor.com is they had like these benchmarks. Here's the benchmark for the banner that performed the best performance banner of in our entire history, right? Imagine that you have something like that in the agency where there's a clear goal, right? There's a clear goal. It's
Yeah.
like, this is the idea that performed the most. You need to beat this idea. Dude, everything would change if it was like that. And that's what I experienced on in-house. Is like, you have all this data, you have like clear objectives and clear, like, how can creativity change things? How can we beat this number? So that became the benchmark, and I don't know. I'm not there for quite a while, but I want to believe that it's still the benchmark because it was really, really cool.
Yeah. If I get this right, when you were at realtor.com, I think you had said that, they were kind of operating more like a ticket-based service model, and that led you to create something called Creative Gym. Is that what happened? I'd love for you to talk about Creative Gym and how that came
Yeah,
about.
yeah, it's sure. Yeah, but I need to go. Let's go back to the ticket-based models. When I arrived at Realtor.com, I found a talented team of makers. They were like good designers. They were good writers. There were people who could deliver. But the way things are work was basically ticket based. Think of it like a IT system, right? Like you submit a ticket, uh, you say, hey, I need a banner or I need a landing page, and then my team would produce it, right? Rinse, repeat. Things were working good because we were delivering on time. Uh, but we felt like the just executing wasn't enough. It was enough to move the business. We needed strong ideas. We needed our partners across the company to believe in those ideas enough to back them, right? So the opportunity was very clear to me that we needed to move the creative team early in the process, where the problems were still being shaped. So we needed the team to think bigger beyond just producing what was asked for, right? So instead of having that ticket, is they were at the end of all the things that is being discussed in meetings, and we wanted to be in those meetings. We wanted to be part of. Why are we doing that? Why do we need a landing page? Why do we need a sweepstakes? Why do you guys think this? We need to go this way. So because we needed to be in the room to make those questions to be on the same page with with everyone. So, and this is because, that's where creativity is most powerful, right? Like not in the
Mhm.
answer, but in the question, being there to ask things.
Yeah.
So that was the problem that I needed to solve, right? Like we needed to be in the room. We needed to be more conceptual thinkers. And that led me to think, actually my boss, Nuno Ferreira, he challenged me to help the team become more conceptual. That was his, that was his challenge that got me thinking. It was like, holy cow, okay, so here's another problem that I need to solve. Okay, cool. How I'm gonna
Yeah.
make my team think more creatively, think more conceptually, like we think in advertising agencies, because everyone, all the people that I had on my team, they never worked in advertising agencies. They didn't know any of the things we know. So how do you do that? So I start like thinking, I went back to something actually that I remember from my early agency days when I was at Leo Burnett and at Crispin. I start realizing that I was getting better by just doing reps, right? The more I
Mm.
did, the better I became. It's constantly,
Yeah.
constantly working that muscle. So and that
Yeah.
that kind of hit me like, and it's kind of beautiful because you kind of, if you need to inspire people that are at that level, you need to go back to when you were at that level, right? So that's where this thing came up. And it hit me really hard. I was like, oh my God, this is kind of like how the gym works. You go to the gyms, you do your reps, you work out, your muscles grow. and you get stronger. I was like, wow, that's cool. So I thought, what if we build a gym for creativity?
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's how the idea came to life. And so as soon as I did this, I went to Nuno. I was like, Nuno, cracked it. I know we're gonna do this creative gym. Nuno's like, oh my God, he got excited. I mean, Nuno is the best boss you can ever ask for. So he got really excited. I was like, dude, go for it. This is amazing. Go see what. He didn't even ask me how I'm gonna do it. He's like, just go for it. He's like, great. I started thinking about structures and all that, and I needed to be something simple because, again, like people needed to feel comfortable. I was a new guy coming in the age in the company, so they needed to, not complicate their life, but like inspire. Right? It was more about
Mm.
inspiring. Once a
Yeah.
week, the whole team will hit the gym with me. So the first half was about just studying. So we would look at great work from the industry, but not just great work. It was great work that could have been done by us. And we look from it and we try to learn from it. It's like we were asking things like, what's the mechanic? You know, what made the idea special? Why does this work? This wasn't like just lectures. There were like conversations. Actually, it were more like provocations, really.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and then from there, the second half was about doing. So everyone would come up with ideas individually. I had like this Figma jam with some lanes that people had their own lane. I'll put the clock for 20 minutes and everyone was just like brainstorming on their own and coming up with ideas, writing like quick ideas. And then we'll go around the room and then we'll share them about like 1, 2 minutes, kind of like elevator pitch, like pick your best idea and present. So the stakes were really low, but there was a lot of
Were
high.
you giving them, was it something based on realtor.com, or was it like ad school where you're saying, do an ad for Bic pens or do an ad for, you know,
Yes. So in the beginning,
smoothie shop?
yes, in the beginning, so we did this for, if I'm not mistaken, it was 23 weeks. So every week we'll hit the gym for 23 weeks. In the beginning, it started with, hey guys, let's do a really simple exercise. When you put two things together, 1 + 1 = a new one, right? To make them start like thinking creatively, I had this prompt random images, and people would start putting random images together, and then they tell me what was the third one. And then it started evolving until to a point that it became actually the banner that we just talked about is a result of that. It started becoming briefs like business problems. It was based on the same thing: 1 + 1 = 3. So hey, here's the business problem. Uh, Mortgage rates are through the roof. We need to get app downloads. What do you see on the third one? And then they start like building things and start coming up with these ideas. So that's kind of like how it worked. And suddenly, like we weren't just exercising; we were actually solving problems without while we're having fun, right? Like because after a few times, this is not like a workshop you do. People come in, they do a workshop, and then the workshop is done, and then you go to your desk and you forget, right? This was like
Yeah.
every single week we were at the gym, so it became something that people were looking for. We had this like company service, and this was one of the
Uh,
things that people said, please skip the gym because they'll come in, they will have fun, and they were actually solving problems while they were having fun. So it was really
yeah.
cool to see how it evolved.
Were you doing it at the same, like, was this like a lunch hour, or are you telling everyone be in a half hour before work or when work ends? Like, how did you, because I imagine there are some people who would say, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. I'd love to do that. But like other gyms, you get some people going early, and then like any other workout routine, some people start to fall off. They say, I don't have time. How did you keep people involved through this whole thing?
Yeah. So first of all, not a military. It was all based on this. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna learn. We're gonna get better. Our muscles are gonna grow. That was the premise. But everyone was free to come. Some people couldn't come sometimes, and they were bummed. But guess what? Like people really enjoyed it. So a lot of people are changing meetings. They're like moving meetings to be at the gym. So
Mm,
and I was the creative director at Realtor.com. I was in charge of everything. There was only one creative director, so I was doing everything like from email, performance marketing, agency relations, TV, like design, landing page. I was involved in everything. So I couldn't change the time. So I needed to be that time, unfortunately. So everyone was kind of like moving their agenda around. But the attendance was pretty good. People were really having fun.
Wow. Did that teach you anything about collaboration or the creative process that you didn't realize before?
Yeah, I think it did. Yes. It did a lot, a lot. I mean, I have so much to say. I'm not even know where to start. So I learned a lot about looking what I was doing at Credit Gym, looking back to the agency, what we were doing at the agency. I learned um, a lot about, actually, let me tell you something. The creative gym, and it's something I didn't mention, is the creative gym. We started with the creatives, right? Like that was the whole premise is like, hey, we need creatives to think more creatively. So we got that part right. People were thinking conceptually, but then I got into another problem. Like we would come up to our partners, to our stakeholders, as a brief. Hey, we need to do a landing page for this campaign, whatever, or we need to do like a little campaign, social campaign for this. Okay, cool. We'll come in with the ideas. And then we got into this big problem. Present the ideas, and then the stakeholders like, no, this we cannot do this. This is too. We never did anything like this. So it was really hard to sell it. And I was like, oh my gosh, how I'm gonna make like. I feel like the stakeholders also need to learn about creative work, about great ideas. I was like, wow, wait a minute. What if I invite them to the creative gym? So that was
Yeah.
really scary because you're literally opening up your process, your creative process, how you make the sausage, right? To all
Yeah.
these people that are the account people, the marketing managers, all those people. So I opened the door completely to them. It's like, hey, what if, we're doing this thing, Creative Gym, it's fun. We believe everyone can come up with ideas. Why don't you come? And then people start coming. And guess what happened, Greg? Two things that happened. Those stakeholders were the first to arrive, the last to leave. They were the
Wow.
ones moving all the meetings that all the creatives was involved, right? Like they had these
Yeah.
creative meetings with the creatives. Like, no, we're gonna move so we can go to the gym. Everyone was here in the gym. And the second thing that happened to us was, you talked about collaboration, was we start going from, hey, here's this crazy idea, and they're like killing the idea, to, wow, I know what it took for you guys to get to this thought. So let me sit
Yeah.
for a second. This might not be right, but if we do something like this, that might work. So that was a big shift. It was not, it went from, no, we're annoyed. They're bringing these crazy ideas that we can never do, to, wait a
Yeah.
minute, this is interesting. Let's find a way together to make it work. And that's where the
Yeah.
collaboration really started to happen. Um, yeah.
What happened with Creative Gym? Did that continue on after you left? I know that you have Creative Gym as a tab on your website. Is that something that you almost even as a consultant will do with other companies now? Like how does Creative Gym live now that you're not at realtor.com?
Yes. I don't know if they are still doing there. I believe they are not doing at Realtor.com. When I go to Starbucks, I did something similar. We called Ad Lab. It was a different crowd, a different audience, a different type of creative. So I needed to tweak a few things. But what I learned in both places is that this thing works. This thing really it makes it changes your team. It changes how people approach and see the work. So I start thinking. I start talking to friends. It's like, hey, what do you think if I do this in your company? It's like, oh, that would be a good idea. Now I'm offering that, like if teams want to do the credit gym, I can come in and I can facilitate that. Like basically everything that I learned from these two places, I can bring to your team. Yeah.
Okay. So just to plug then, anyone listening to this or watching this, it's on luismarques.work, I think.
Don't work
You
yet.
can go check that out. We'll put that link in the show notes and put it up on the screen too, because that's pretty it's a terrific offering. Let's jump into Starbucks then. So how did you make the move from realtor.com to Starbucks? How did that happen?
Yeah. I mean, like, I live in Seattle. So I've been here for almost 6 years now. This is going to be 6 years. And I was been looking at all these jobs that come up, right? I was like, oh, Starbucks, there's this credit director role for Starbucks. And then I will open the job description. And it was about a credit director for retail to do like like all the signage at the store. I was like, I'm a designer, but that's not what I've been doing. It's just doesn't it's not good. So I never applied for those jobs because they were not the right thing. Now, Starbucks recently got a new CEO, Brian Niccol, who used to be at Chipotle, right? I used to say to my friends, he's kind of like the best quarterback on the league. That's why he gets paid so well, and people get upset. But it's like I keep saying, it's like, hey, it's like you bring Cristiano Ronaldo to the Seattle Sounders. Like, wouldn't you pay all those millions to that guy? Like, he's the best guy in the world.
Yeah,
He's coming
yeah.
to do a turnaround. So when he came to Starbucks, he was kind of like poking around. He's like, hey, what's our marketing budget? And people are kind of like, oh, we don't do ads. He's like, what do you mean you don't do ads? Like, oh, we're Starbucks. We're so big. We don't need. It's like, no, that's about to change. He wanted, him and the CMO, they wanted to have an advertising component within the studio, the creative studio. So they put up a job that says creative director advertising. And I was like, oh my gosh, like in 5 years, this is the first time that there's a job that I'm actually at Starbucks that I'm actually a good fit. So I applied to that job, and then I got the job. Went to interview and all the good stuff,
Yeah.
and then I got in.
So I'd like to talk about we can talk about as many pieces of work as you want, but there are two that I know that you were involved in that I was a fan of even before we started, talking about you being on the podcast. I think Drawn Together, which was the Christmas
Uh,
commercial, and then Coffee Run, which was a Super Bowl commercial that kind of led into the Winter Olympics. Both of those were just terrific. Would you talk a little bit about? I'd love to hear how those came about and your involvement, but also keeping in mind that this is an in-house effort, right?
so yeah, now let me go back. This was an effort with Anomaly LA.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Okay.
Anomaly LA is the agency of the record. So I was involved, like the team involved since the beginning, briefing, agency bring, like typical process. Agency brings ideas. We look at the
Yeah.
ideas. We kill a few. We fall in love with another. So that's kind of like how it worked. There was a lot of meetings where they will present work, and then I think that's the beauty also the being a creative in house that used to be a creative in the agency. There's a big like bridge that gets built, right? Like
Yeah.
on my side, I understand what those creatives are going through to get through the work. I understand what they're trying to do. But on the other side, they have someone that understands what the business needs. And I think that's the bridge that you learn when you go from agency to in-house. You learn how to bridge that gap because,
Yeah.
and this is something I wanted to bring it up too, which is, like when you're in-house, you get to see the problems, you get to see what you're trying to solve, you get to see the data, right? Like going back to that banner at realtor.com, right? We were like every week we had status meetings and all that and all these things we were doing, all that data was shared with the team, with a bunch, with a big team, with the directors. It was like, hey, this banner is performing, this banner is not performing, this work is performing, this landing page is not performing. So we're constantly looking at how things are working, creatively speaking, and that's something that the agency they don't have, right?
Yeah. Do you
And
find that oh, go ahead.
And I was just gonna say, like, it was really good, I think, for being a creative on the in-house side that is working with the agency that understands what we need business wide. So it was always like this kind of like falling together, like a little
Mhm.
dance where they push one side, we push this side, they push this side. It's like kind of like trying to find the middle ground. Um,
Yeah.
and that's how those things work with those two spots. There was a lot of pushing to our side, a lot of pushing to creative side, a lot of, hey, wait, no, let's give creative liberty because this is important to be creative. Our CMO always pushing for, raising the bar for the best work. So that also that helped.
What's it like being the creative director, at in-house and then working with a creative director at an agency? You've been both, but now I guess, what's it like to be that bridge? Do you feel
I mean,
like you're trying to defend the creative work to the in-house team, to your team, or do you feel like you are trying to tell the agency, "This is what we need to do," or I guess that's part of the bridge, right? Like, that's you're doing both.
yeah. I mean, first of all, if it feels like, how do I explain this? It feels like I always like to explain things through soccer because I'm a crazy fan.
Yeah.
Imagine that you're on a soccer team in Portugal let's say Portugal. And then suddenly those two guys that used to play in Portugal, they play in different countries, but they play each other on the Champions League, right? It's kind of like
Yeah.
it, the way I look to the creative director at the agency as like, dude, we're buddies. I mean, I'm a creative director on this side. You're a creative on that side. I know your world. I'm here to help, right? So it's this collaboration where, you know, like I had like one-on-ones with the GCD at Anomaly. We talked about, you know, the work. We talked about what was inspiring in their world, what's inspiring our world. So there was all this constant connection, you know. And then there
Yeah.
was all like, you know, when we were working on campaigns, they were very aware of the business where, you know, like we're back to Starbucks, turnaround. So sometimes, you know, like as a creative, I know this as a creative, you get your hands down, you know, like your heads down just on the work, and sometimes you miss a few things that are important, right? So being on the other side with fresh eyes, you could push things. You know, like I give you an example, the the holiday spot that you mentioned, right? The whole idea was Anomaly came and sold the idea of tell this story through the cups. You know, like cups. Think about it. Red cups is a big moment for Starbucks every year. We designed these cups. They're all different designs every year, so we never wanted to be a big deal of it. We are going to Starbucks, so the baristas are now writing on the cup. So the Sharpie is back.
Mhm.
So Anomaly put those things together, Sharpie, and then the cups. They wanted to tell this story through the cups. There was one thing that was missing was that story was all happening in the cups, but it didn't land at the store, right? So part of the back to Starbucks was we're not only going to go back to Sharpies, we're not going to go back to do all the things we used to do. We are going to back to people coming to our store as a third place. So third place was a big strategic um, part of the back to Starbucks plan, and that was missing on the work. So the push was, hey, you know what? This is a great story, but we need to cut back to the store where those two
Mhm.
people are actually having a moment together because you know the line is together is the best place to be, like, and the best place to be at Starbucks. So we want to close the loop. And so in the beginning there was like some resistance, but then they understood where the push was coming from. And then the last push was, and also the people that you see on the screen at the end, they should match the drawings that is on the cup,
Yeah.
because then the story is all together. So this is how the, you know, giving you a little bit of the inside of the, you know, the process. But these are the things that sometimes, you know, like it's important to have someone on the other side that can be a partner, you know, like, and it's like, hey, what
Yeah.
about this? And then, you know, Anomaly took the feedback and they do their own thing. But that's kind of like how it works.
Yeah. So I'm always going to hang on to this. I love the idea of sometimes you're Cristiano Ronaldo for Portugal and sometimes you're Cristiano Ronaldo for Manchester United or whoever he's with, you know, at whatever
Exactly.
given time. That's great. Talk to me about Coffee Run. That was just a beautiful spot. And I imagine you knew, even though it was kind of based in the Winter Olympics, you knew it was going to be a Super Bowl spot, right?
Well, you know, we didn't know actually. We had a different spot for Super Bowl, and then we shifted for Winter Olympics because we knew people, you know, brands will be talking about it. The Winter Olympics were so close, and you know, you saw at Super Bowl there was like a few spots that was talking about the Winter Olympics. Like Coffee Run was very interesting because you know we've been like talking about rituals, right? Like, and again, like the beautiful of also working at Starbucks, which is a kind of a different creative challenge in a good way, is that you know you you are doing things for um people with real, there's like a real emotion relationship with it, right? It's not just a transaction, you know, like people have their orders, they have their store, it needed to be woven into the daily ritual. So you know, like the creative work needed to carry that weight, right? So the coffee run, what is interesting about the coffee run, and there was different interactions of the idea, by the way, but the core idea was we have these athletes, elite athletes that we're gonna have access to. We are sponsor of the Team USA. We need to you know, like there's a little thing that, like a little, how do you say, is like a little something goes a long way, like a little,
Yeah, yeah.
I forgot. But
I think
there
it's
was like
just a little goes a long way. Yeah.
a little goes a long way. So was based in this human truth that when you bring the coffee to someone, it can warm their heart. So that's where this started. And we wanted to pay tribute to all the people, not only the athletes, but all the people that are making the games, because the games doesn't make by itself. There's the janitor, there's the, the ski lift people, there's the, like you see all the characters on the film is trying to tell that story, that a coffee run goes a long way. And so that was kind of like the idea. We fell in love about this concept. And then, we wanted to have a good director. We wanted to have an amazing film, epic film. And so we started like unlocking doors for that to happen.
Um, I'm curious to know on your website, you've got both of these spots on your website. You've got some other amazing work on your website. What I love is before you even get to the work, you have a headline on your website that just says, "I care about making work that's worth caring about." Talk to me about what makes the work worth caring about.
Yes, that's a great question. You got me on the spot. It's going to be, let me think. So I think to me is, it's work that is human, work that is honest, work that is inspiring. Like if you look at some of the work I have, the work we did for Samsung, I did this like spot for Samsung called Snail with Ali Burnett Chicago. It's this story of this young kid from India who wants to be a surfer from India. Like there's no surf in India, right? And we told this story about it was the campaign was do what you can't, and we told this underdog story because Samsung is number two, so they were like, we're number two, that's fine, but we have dreams and we're gonna get there. So that was the whole premise of the spot. And we found this kid, real kid, in a surf club in India. This is like back in the day, like all Facebook groups, and texting these people, like just creators being creatives. We found this
Yeah.
kid, and if you see, there's a quote on my website from one of the guys that was at the surf community, and it says something like, "You have no idea how much impact this is going to make in India for surfing. This spot, how big became for that community, which is a big country." So to me, it's like making work that people care about is work that's and this is a dream, obviously, because I see my kids watching their shows, and then there's an ad like an ad. It's like, oh my god, like I'm sorry, kid. Like, so you kind of want to make something that people actually enjoy watching, that people feel inspired, they feel moved by, they want to do something
Mhm.
with it, they want to share with their friends, they want to, they see the holiday spot for Starbucks, they want to call a friend and go grab a coffee at Starbucks. That's what I wanted to
Yeah.
do, is like things that move people into a positive side of life. Like there's so much negativity in the world. If you're gonna put something out in the world, it needs to be something people care.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's interesting too. I mean, I go back to your original story from realtor.com and the thing that people cared about that banner. I mean, you had the entire company excited about, cost per installation going down 83%. I mean, that might not necessarily be heartwarming in the way that, Drawn Together is, but it still was something people cared about.
Yes, and yes, that's a good point too. Yes. In terms of performance too, it needs to be something that it needs to be a combination of both.
Yeah.
And actually, Greg, I had something planned to tell you too, and I think it got lost on the uh, on the questions. But I think you asked me about what were the things that I learned about doing the creative gym,
Yeah.
right? So one of
Yeah.
the things that I really learned about it was a combination of things. It was being in-house, being in the agency. Is this idea where in the agency, the culture in the agency is about winning awards, right? It's about winning the awards, is about making the work that people gets jealous about, because that's how you get recognition by the peers, right? That's how you get your next job. That's how you get promoted. That's how your people at the agency look at you as like, oh, that's the guy. Those are that team. They did this. Like you want to work for those guys. That's how the juniors want to work with you. That's the only measurement that you have in the agency, right? And
Yeah.
even your work, you can even measure your work. You don't even know if that work was good or not. When you go in house, it's the opposite. You do this work, the agency brings the work. Monday comes in, the work still's on, the agency is on the next brief. We are looking at that data. Comes Tuesday, we're looking at the data. Comes Wednesday, we're looking at that data. We're constantly looking if this thing is performing or not. So you get to learn about the work, right? Like if you think about it,
Yeah.
you get to learn about, is this work performing, not performing? What can we learn from it? So you're constantly in learning mode, which is, to me, what I think is the agency. Like looking back, I wish the agencies that I work with, they teach me about business. They teach me about these things. And I think it's fair to say a lot of the times they don't get access to the data, right? They don't get access to how
Yeah.
things
That's
perform,
true.
you
Yeah.
know? But I think like if you think about it, how the tension that exists between agency and in-house, right? I'm on the in-house, and I hear things like, oh, all these creatives care about is winning awards. It's a stigma. People know that. And
Yeah.
it's not fair to say it because they only care about it because they don't have any other things to measure, right? And I
Yeah.
think I
That's
had this
interesting.
idea in my mind that if if the agency was a little more, like if the agency was really asking for more results, more involved in, is this things performing, is this the things performing, what can we learn, and bring those creatives in to learn with it,
Hmm.
I I I think I believe that that tension will be removed completely. Like it will drop, um, like to crazy levels. And I think on the creative gym, what I learned from the creative gym when I brought in the stakeholders, I saw that happen in front of me. They were not, these guys just want to create things that is beautiful. They knew what we're trying to do. They could see that we're trying to solve the business problem. They knew we're trying all our best to solve the business problem. And I think like when you have that trust, that's when you make the best work,
Yeah.
you know?
And I imagine part of that has got to be the in-house companies or the stakeholders or whoever controls the data. They've got to be willing to share it or push it out. But agencies need to be asking about that too. They can't just. I mean, I've worked at agencies that have been award-winning agencies, and really, what we're concerned with is, did that campaign get into communication arts? Did that, is this something that we think we can submit to Cannes? Um, and when it does well, we're like, okay, maybe we'll submit it for an FE if you want us to.
Yeah.
Um, do you think so? Let's Is that one of the reasons why I think creatives care about or focus so much on the work? Well, one, I mean, the work is what we do. It's why we got into the business. But there's also the way that we display the work. We want a good. I think most creatives want a good piece of work so they can put it on their portfolio. So that raises their, hopefully their salary, their credentials, their ability to get another job, a higher paying job, a different, some promotion. Do you think that, um, take the realtor.com banner ad, if told right, that's still something that a creative director would pay attention to, right? It might not be the flashiest thing.
Yeah. I think, Craig, I think there gotta be a shift in mindset. Like we see, and you see all the tension in the can, like recently, all the work that gets submitted that is not even real, right? Like that was a big thing for us, for the industry, right? Because suddenly now
Yeah,
everyone thinks that all the work is that. That was not cool. But that has been
yeah,
happening for a long time, right? And I think like when you make that shift, when you start valuing work that actually perform, and you have the proof that and this is not media impressions, right? Like we went through a phase where media impressions and social shares, that was the measurement. I mean, let's talk about business. Like when you talk about a banner ad that decreases 83% the cost per installation. I mean, that is a big number, right? That is not a, it's very concrete. But when you start changing the mindset, I think that's when things are gonna start, and I go back in time, like, Ogilvy and all those guys that got all inspired. I mean, those
yeah,
people, they were looking at data. They were looking at whatever, they were looking at sales number. That's what they were like, that's where they're getting new clients because they were doing advertising that was selling. They could see that.
yeah.
And I think these days we lost that completely. If you think about it, at least from my world, I'm not
Hmm.
in advertising for that long, but for all these years I've been in advertising, there was never a conversation with anyone in all the agencies that I went through about that. Hey,
Yeah.
we're selling our product. Our product is selling more than ever. There was never, and if there was like very slightly that no one paid attention, right?
Yeah.
So I think the conversation needs to change a little bit on the agency side, and to be honest, on the in-house side too, right? Like the creative gym is a good example of that. People on the in-house side, they need to understand what good work is. What is the
Yeah.
great work, so they can buy great work. So they need to constantly looking at work, what is good, what's not, so they can push for the work. And I think on the other side, the agency needs to start paying more attention to to the more boring things like the metrics, the performance thing. Like we need to be looking at that together, both
Yeah.
both things.
Yeah. One of the things you had said earlier about Creative Gym that I wanted to just touch base on was you had said that you weren't just looking at great work, you were looking at great work that realtor.com could do. So, I imagine you weren't. Talk to me a little bit about how that refined you, because I know that I've been at a lot of agencies where, maybe the creative director might just weekly share out, hey, here's a really terrific idea, or this was what Ad Age is sharing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that our business or our client or whoever we're working with could do something on that scale. How do you determine this is something that we could do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and there's actually two questions there. So one is, like you have the Slacks, you have all these things, the emails, you have all this stuff that you can share. But from my experience, when you share those things, people are so busy. There's so many Slacks going on. People are like, this Slack, that Slack is probably muted because like, it's creative director is sending all these references,
Yeah.
whatever. I don't need to pay attention. I need to pay attention to this thing. So it doesn't really work, to be honest. You share and maybe people give a like and you don't even know if they look at it, they pay attention. So yes, we should continue doing that. Some people pay attention, but I think what it really helps is carve time on your calendars to meet your team. Like as a creative director, I'll be the coach. These people, like we need to invest in people. There's this thing also on the creative gym that I've been now that I need to sell this service to other people, to other teams.
Mhm.
I've been thinking about this. You know, when you think about soccer players, when you think about musicians, when you think about anyone that is performing, guess what they all have in common besides the performing?
What?
Practice. Practice.
Oh,
They go to
yeah.
training. They train every week before they go to the stadium.
Yeah.
So in advertising, as a creative, the expectation is for you to go to that stadium and perform in every game without the practice. So you don't have the time to practice. You just go brief to brief, brief to brief. You start as a junior and you start getting that muscle, but you just constantly go. And there's no time, there's no carved time in the calendar for your creative director to come in and teach you and coach you in on what, like, let's have a conversation. How do I come up with ideas as a creative director? I was sharing all the secrets I have with my team at Realtor.com. This is how I come up with ideas. When I'm get stuck, this is what I do to get unstuck. So I play this role where I'm a creative director, but I'm a coach at the same time. Um, so yeah, and then to your other question, how do you think about bringing an idea? I give you an example. There was a few years ago. Remember that idea that won a Grand Prix? It was like the Amazon of Argentina during the World Cup. Do you remember that idea?
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
for people listening that they don't know the idea, I'll quickly tell. But it was really, really simple idea. So Argentina wants the World Cup. They've been chasing this World Cup since Maradona, right? The whole country is crazy about soccer. They won the World Cup and they wanted to do something about it. So some crazy creative in the agency was like, oh, wait a minute, we can track the airplanes of Elon Musk, we can track the airplanes of Jeff Bezos. We can probably track the airplane that of the Argentina team, the national team, coming back home. So they found this way to track the airplane. So what did they do? They used something that was native in their product, in their app, which is app notifications. That's something we do a lot. Our Realtor.com is like, hey, we need to push a notification so people say the new house in your area, right? So they use that mechanic to push a notification to their whole customers saying your package is on the way. People freak out. It's like, what do you mean it's on the way? I didn't buy anything. So what was on the way was the World Cup. The cup was on the way, so they could track the cup coming from Qatar back to Argentina.
Yeah.
People go crazy. This took over the internet, right? So I
I
brought that
remember
idea
this.
to the team. Is like, guys, what do we have in common that we could have done this? If the USA won, we could have done something like that. Well, obviously not for the same idea, but like using the mechanic is something we can use. How can
Yeah.
you how can you tap into something that is happening right now in the culture, use our app notification to weave in some idea that we don't know what the idea is, but that's the mechanic. So that's how I will bring these ideas, we'll look at the ideas, and that's what we call deconstruct. We deconstruct the whole idea, try to find the mechanic, try to find what it works, and it needs to be something that it could have been done by you, by your brand, and then you
Yeah.
learn from it. And maybe you're not going to use that mechanic, but you learn how to look at work. So then when they're on their own, they can do the same thing.
Yeah. That's okay. That's great answer. I'd like to shift. There's a question that I want to ask. It's about a LinkedIn post that was on your feed. And when you shared this with me, it really stayed with me. So you talk about how the most uncomfortable feedback that you've ever received didn't break you, it briefed you like it was a creative brief. Would you talk about that? That just really
Yeah.
fascinated me.
Yeah, totally. And so again, going back to Hyper Island, we had this one of the hardest parts of Hyper Island was they will put you in these different groups of people, different backgrounds, and then you go through a project. It was like kind of like a real project. You go through the project, and then we had a facilitator coming in, and then imagine there's all these people with different ways of being, right? Different ways of character, right? Different character. And then you come into this room, you'll be like, imagine you work with 6 people. You'll be in this room for an hour. You have like post-it notes, and then people are giving you feedback on the spot. Like, Greg, real stuff. Like, if you're an asshole, they will tell you you're an asshole. And you knew you were an asshole, but you're like, no one is going to tell me I'm an asshole. But suddenly you have 5 people in that room saying, oh, you're an asshole doing that. And your guard goes down. You're like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
people are crying in this feedback
Wow.
session. So what I learned back then was, wait a minute, this is really uncomfortable. But what's happening here is, and sometimes they were telling me things I didn't even know I was doing, right? Like small things that irritate people. We all do that. So our getting that feedback, and then as soon as I went through all these emotions and tried to and understand, and I realized that feedback is truly a gift. If someone really comes to you and tells you something about yourself that you didn't know about it, you should give a hug to that person. It's like, look, thanks for telling me that. No one ever told me this, right? Because now you have
Yeah.
something to work with, and that's the brief to me. So that whole idea is, in advertising, we're looking for the brief to solve a problem,
Mm.
right? There's a tension where people, I want feedback, but they don't tell me anything about myself that is bad because I'm going to punch you, right? Like people don't want to know.
Yeah.
Like we're all
Yeah.
scared of knowing the bad things we do. So when you shift that, when you start understanding that actually is going to make you a better person, a better creative, a better whatever the feedback is, then becomes the brief you need to work with. And I've got like really hard feedback through the years, like tough feedback
Mm.
that you look at as like, man, I suck. Wow, people must hate me. Did I getting all this feedback? I didn't. I suck. But then you get that moment. You're allowed to do that, but you quickly
Yeah.
need to move. It's like, okay, now this is the brief. I'm going to crack this brief. I'm going to crack this feedback, and I'm never ever anyone's going to tell me this again because I'm going to nail it. So that's kind of
How
like my approach to it.
how do you determine whether this is constructive feedback or someone is just venting?
Yeah. Yeah, you need to understand there's some things you like, I see you're venting. Thank you. Yeah, we'll pay attention to that and you move on. But there's when is real feedback, you're like, oh shit, I know deep inside I do that, but I never thought people could see that and you tell me,
Yeah.
and you start asking a little bit, is there anything else that you know that, like, because here's the thing, not everyone is going to be that person to give you that feedback. That's why I'm going back to feedback is a gift. And if someone gives you that truly unfiltered feedback, you should be very
Yeah.
grateful, because you don't get those people to do that. Like maybe your
Yeah.
parents who do that all the time, and it kind of comes annoying. Like, the parents will tell me this again, right? But but if you think about it, the stranger that comes to you and gives you some of that unfiltered, candid feedback,
Mhm.
you know, on the moment, you know that is good feedback.
Yeah. How do you organize something like that where, because I think culture it's so important to protect culture, and it's so important to have, not that everyone has to feel good all the time, but, whether it's a client killing a campaign, or I don't know, there are lots of things that can throw us off for the day, and having a coworker say something, while true, might really be a bruised ego for us. Like, how do you separate ego from the opportunity to grow and have the culture of the company still flourish?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I think um, I think there's moments where, and there's different types of people, right? There's people that they might be willing to get feedback, and people that they might not willing to get feedback. And I think is when you have those people that they're not willing to get feedback, you need to have a real conversation with them. You need to be like, look, I'm not here to make your life harder. I'm here to help you, and because you need to help us. This is a whole sports. It's like, again, I go back to the coaching thing, right? There's always a player on the locker room that it's hard to work with, but that's your player. You need to find a way to work with that person. You need to find a way to somehow bring that person next to where you want it to go. And you're just don't give feedback because I'm just annoyed with this person. I'm gonna give like you give feedback on concrete things, right? Like on things that like it can change. Like for example, I had a one time in my career, one person that he wanted to be a creative director, but he was a bad designer. So this person was, because as a art director on the title, he wanted to be, I'm a director. It's like, well, you can be a director and I can help you get there. But you need to do a few things first, which is you need to become a better designer. And no one ever told him that. It was like, dude, no one ever told me this. I've been here for a while. Like, no one ever told me this. I was like, okay, well, I can help you become a better designer too. So let's work. And this was a person that was really hard to get feedback. But when you get to the real root of the problem and to the reality of what it is, and again, goes back to what I was telling you, is like deep inside he knew it. He was not a good designer, but no one ever brought that up. So it felt like, oh, this is kind of like makeup. I don't need to be a good designer. I can just be this person that I'm going to be a creative director, right? But when someone comes in and gives you that unfiltered, candid feedback, everything changed. And I became good. Like we had a great relationship after that. And every time we like work, it was kind of like a mentorship. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have like the real answers, but I think that's how like you work with people, right? As a creative
Yeah.
leader, you're managing people. So everyone is different. Some people are seeking for it. I'm one of those guys that I'm always seeking for feedback. That's the thing I'm chasing, is for candid and filtered feedback. Like give me the hard punches, give me
Yeah.
the hard gut feeling in my stomach that I go home and I tell my wife like, oh my God, today sucked. I got this feedback. Can you believe? That's what I wanted, because that's what makes me a better person. That's what makes me a better creative.
Well, Luis, before I let you go, I want to ask you a question that I ask all my guests. This has nothing to do with advertising or business or anything, but I'm curious, if you were in an airport and you could go anywhere, cost, time, none of that's a factor. You get to go. Where do you want to go and why? And you pick one domestic location and one international location.
Well, I needed to go to a place I've never been, and a
Okay.
place that I'll be very uncomfortable.
Okay. I
You
like where
know,
this is going.
I'll
Yeah.
go to a place where they didn't speak English or they didn't speak Portuguese. And I would go because I like the unknown, man. I like to go, and I experienced this in my life growing up. I lived in Greece once, lived in Sweden, and all those places. What I used to do is you go on the streets and you decide it's going to be right, left, left, right, right, and that's what you do. You don't know where you're going. You just get out of the house, right, left, right, right, left, and then you end it somewhere else, and then you stop and you observe what you see, and that's kind of like how I
Wow.
like to to go through just like randomly. I don't like the planning, too much planning, like you're going to see. I like the you know experience what lives
Yeah.
puts in front of you. So I would probably go that. And in the States too, I would go to some place I've never been in the States, which there's still a few. Maybe I would go, because we're in the States, maybe I'll go to Alaska, for example, just
Yeah.
to see what's up there, or go to New Orleans. I've never been to New Orleans. I like a good party, so maybe I'll go there. But I'm more interested in going to things I never been, or I feel like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, how I'm gonna survive. I mean, none of the crime stuff, by the way, but just
Yeah. Yeah. I remember years ago, I was in my first job, and my wife and I were going to go to Venice. We'd never been before. And I just remember my boss saying, "Oh, you're going to love Venice. Here's my advice to you. You'll get to Venice, you'll get a little map of the city, take the map, fold it up, and put it in the trash. Don't ever look at it. Just wander through Venice, and that's the best way to experience it." And yeah, we got lost. I mean, we always knew we were still on the island, so we knew we hadn't wandered too far. But I mean, there were even things like out of a sitcom where we knew we were heading in one direction, and it turned out we'd gone in a circle. We're like, weren't we just at this church like a half hour ago? So,
Uh-huh.
uh,
That's the best. I
okay,
mean,
but
those are the best trips.
yeah. Well, okay, but if you were in the airport, like internationally, you're going somewhere where you're going to get lost, where they don't speak English or Portuguese. Do you have anything off the top of your head?
I think like I'm going back to, I'm in Seattle, which like normally I probably like go to Japan or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Or maybe Singapore would be
Yeah.
cool. Or even like Dubai. I mean, people speak English there, but like going, go to a rural place like that. Morocco, maybe Morocco, close to home. I
Yeah.
could visit the family. Yeah, Morocco.
Yeah.
I'll pick Morocco.
Well, my mom just got back from 2 weeks in Morocco, and all of her pictures were just the most exotic, amazing, and most of them were just doorways. But it was just like, good for her. She had a pretty good.
But
that's high on my list too.
But you see, that's the beauty of traveling. You go to those places. You will talk with someone from Morocco. It's like, oh, the door is beautiful. It's like, what are you talking about? This is our door. We're like, it's a door. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't understand. I never seen a door like this. This is amazing. So that's the thing I like about going to a place that is unexpected like that. You find the beauty on the things that people don't find it because they take it for granted, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Luis Marques, this has been so great. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. I have absolutely loved this conversation.
Thanks, Greg. Likewise, was a pleasure to be here, and good luck for everything.
That's it for this episode of Let's Bring It In. Huge thanks to Luis Marques for joining me for such a thoughtful conversation. And if you want to hear more conversations with creative leaders doing great work at in-house places like Starbucks, Whole Foods, LinkedIn, Liquid Death, NASA, and more, visit letsbringitin.com. Our theme music was composed by Nick Patronella. You can find more of Nick's work on Vimeo. And thanks to you for listening. Let's Bring It In is a production of Barnes Creative Bank at barnescreativebank.com.